Very good. For most beekeepers, it's a perfect time of the year to start feeding bees. Hi, I'm David Burns, EAS Certified Master Beekeeper. We feed our bees during a time of dearth, when there's no floral sources available, and there's a stretch of time when flowers stop yielding nectar until they start again. For some people, that could be a week, 2 weeks. For me, it's about 4 months. So that we really have to get our bees to get some food on there to make it through a time of dearth, and for me it's winter. A few weeks ago I made a video on different feeders that beekeepers use and to help feed their bees. When I made this video, a lot of you liked it and gave some good comments about the type of feeders that you enjoy. If you haven't seen the video that I made about feeders, I'll leave a link right up here and you can click on that and it'll be ready after this video is over. You can watch that. Good video on feeders and which feeders to use. Today, I'm going to show you a feeder that the majority of you really hounded me on about where you could find it because you really liked it a lot. So what we're going to do today is set it up and put it out in the yard with some 1-to-1 sugar water and actually watch the bees come to it and see how much they really like it too. A lot of you keep asking me, what's the difference between 1-to-1 sugar water and 2-to-1? Well, obviously you know the difference. What you're asking is, I've heard, you always say, like, I've heard some people say 2-to-1 is what you give them in the fall, 1-to-1 is what you give them in the spring. And a lot of you have heard that old paradigm, and I want to talk about it again because I know a lot of you are new to my channel and you haven't heard me go over this before. But here's the thing. The concept of 2-to-1, 2 parts sugar, 1 part water, is so that the bees can be fed 2-to-1 in the fall, and before winter hits, they'll have time to actually store that 2-to-1 syrup, dry it down, maybe even cap it over for their winter food source. 1-to-1 is going to take longer to dry down and get the moisture out, right? That's the concept. But let me remind you that I spent a lot of years trying to figure out how to overwinter bees. And my problem was I had plenty of honey in frames around the brood nest area and above it, but I didn't have survival rates that I needed. It was because I didn't have the bees in the colony. I didn't understand winter physiology that makes bees live 4 to 8 months. Once I understood that concept, now, as I've explained many times in videos, I like to feed bees only 1-to-1 in the fall so that I can stimulate my queen to continue laying eggs of bees of winter physiology, and the 1-to-1 gives my worker bees, especially my nurse bees, the ability to make a lot of royal jelly to feed upcoming developing larvae. When it boils right down to it, you need a lot of bees to get through a cold winter. Bees are the heaters. That's the only way they can make heat is by the bees producing with the thoracic muscles that they have, the muscle that operates the wing and the legs. And so they'll actually use this muscle like we do. We shiver when we get cold. Our muscles actually shiver and make our bodies warm up. Bees are doing the same thing. So the more we can have more heater bees, more bees in the colony that are going to live 4 to 8 months, the greater chance they're going to survive, but they need to be well fed. So right now, we're actually stimulating bees to keep raising brood in the month of October so that they can be bees we'll see next spring. I talked more about this in my one of my most recent videos. I'll leave a link up here to talk more about how we can actually see the developing larvae in late September. Those are the bees of winter physiology. So that's the difference between 2-to-1 and 1-to-1, is that it does help bees build up and stimulate more brood rearing if it's 1-to-1. 2-to-1 is just to help them store more resources for the winter. And I don't really use 2-to-1 because in the winter, I use my winter bee kind candy board that we manufacture to actually get my bees through the winter. Like I said, these are the ones that you guys ask a lot about. And it's kind of cool because it's got a little valve here that it closes off the water source, the food source, while you're filling it up. But then as soon as you put it back on here, you can see the little tab pushes down on it, releasing the fluid. So it's a nice way to do that. But anyway, I want to show you kind of what I do. Take this off, and then the way I like to do it is, there's always some paperwork in here, and I noticed some other things like there's some plastic, I guess sawdust, plastic dust from, I kind of knock all that out. The bees aren't going to consume that. You can rinse it out with water if you want to. In fact, I think I'll go rinse that out real quick. Okay, so got that rinsed out. And what I like to do now is just take my mixture. And again, I've talked about why I use 1-to-1 sugar water as opposed to 2-to-1 in the fall. And I mix in my protein powder. I mix in amino bee booster. And I mix in some Honeybee Healthy. And look at that, it kind of gives it this color. It's kind of a golden honey color, actually. And you can see some of the pollen, or protein. It's not pollen, but it's protein powder. Didn't quite dissolve, so slosh that around a little bit more and put it in there. And then once I get that on there, I'm going to put the top on it like this, seal it off. Now I'm going to take it out to the bee yard, away from the hives, at least 25, 50, 100 yards out. I don't want to bring bees after this food and then they might rob my bees. So let's take it out in the yard, near the edge of the field. Very good. Now the reason, you may wonder, why did I choose to use a hive in this situation? It's basically because I want to protect the pollen that I've placed here. I can put this under a top cover. So sometimes when you're trying to feed bees pollen, it's difficult when it starts to rain or the dew at night can make the powder no longer dry. And so by keeping the powder under a top cover, simulating this as a hive, it's a hive that's really a feeding station. I don't know why I didn't think about this earlier in my beekeeping career. So you can see here, bees are feeding on an entrance feeder. I've got 1-to-1 sugar water, and you can see the number of bees that are trying to get that sugar water. Look at that. So they're just flying in and out. Wow, there's a lot of bees. My goodness. So, you know, you can change that out. So this is a nice little feeding station. It keeps things kind of under the protection of a top cover. And this is really useful to keep bees from robbing your other hives by feeding them like this. Look at this. We rolled the odometer over 70,000 subscribers. I want to thank all my subscribers. Appreciate it so much. And I want to encourage you, many of you are watching. I get analytics that show how many of you watch that are not subscribers, and I'm glad you're watching. Don't stop, but if you could find it within your heart to subscribe, I would greatly appreciate it. Well, I hope you enjoyed this video on the difference between 2-to-1 and 1-to-1 and a few more feeding tips heading into winter that might really benefit you a lot. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, remember, give me a thumbs up and subscribe, click on the bell so you'll be notified each time I make a new video. I appreciate you guys watching so much. See you next time.